My mother used to say, silence is a woman's greatest weapon. I didn't know she meant survival. The room smelled of iron and old money. Leather chairs, heavy curtains, and shadows that moved even when nothing else did. I sat still, my hands trembling in my lap, wrists sore from the grip of guards who had escorted me in without a word. His word. I hadn't seen him yet, but I felt him. Like thunder before a storm, like fear before a scream. The door clicked. Soft, deliberate footsteps. Not hurried, never hurried. A presence more than a man. He entered like a shadow, dressed in black, sharp lines, colder eyes. He didn't look at me, not yet. He looked at the fire as if it owed him something. You're smaller than I thought. His voice was smoke, slow, dangerous, designed to make you lean in and never see the blade coming. I didn't speak. I couldn't. He finally turned. Our eyes locked, and something inside me, something small and hopeful, broke. You understand why you're here? He asked. I nodded. He didn't blink. Say it. My father owes your family a debt. He waited, like a vulture waits, and I swallowed. I'm the payment. He walked toward me, slow, each step a sentence. Your father was a coward, he said, voice barely above a whisper. He stole from me, lied to me, and ran. Now he was standing inches from me. I could smell the cold on his suit, could hear the silence ringing in his throat. And now you're mine. I flinched, not from his words, but from the way he said them. Like owning me wasn't punishment, like it was law. I should hate him. I should scream, run, spit. But I sit here like a lamb in a lion's study, pretending I don't feel the heat. Between my knees, do you know what kind of man I am, Isabella? I didn't answer. He crouched eye level, close enough to breathe my fear. I kill men for a living, he said softly, but it's women like you who keep me up at night. My heart hit my ribs like it wanted out. His fingers lifted my chin, slow but certain, forcing my eyes to his. You'll marry me, he said. Tonight. My breath caught. Why? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Because your father needs to know what loyalty looks like, even if it's buried in silk and screams. And then he leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. And because I want to hear you say my name like a promise you didn't mean to, he kissed me that night, not like a man claiming a bride, but like a man delivering a sentence. And I knew something then that I couldn't forget. He didn't just want obedience. He wanted ruin, mine. Some kisses feel like mercy. His felt like war, and I lost before I even closed my eyes. The dress they gave me was white, but it didn't feel like purity. It felt like surrender. Silk clung to my skin like warning. The neckline was low, the back non-existent. I looked like a woman trying to be beautiful, when all I wanted was to be invisible. The ring slid on my finger with the weight of a shackle. The vows were whispered. Between lies, no guests, no flowers, no family, just me, him, and a signature that sealed more than fate. He didn't smile when the priest said husband. He didn't flinch when I was pronounced his dot. He didn't even look at me. But his hand stayed on the small of my back like a threat, dressed in affection, back in the mansion, his mansion. The silence was different, not cold, not cruel, expectant. He poured himself a drink, ice, whiskey, silence. Why did you say yes? He asked without turning. I hesitated. You didn't leave me a choice. That made him turn. His eyes were glass, beautiful, breakable, dangerous. There's always a choice, he said. You just didn't pick the one that would have gotten you killed. My heart stuttered, but I held his gaze. I would not. Be the weak girl he thought he bought. What happens now? I asked. He stepped forward. Now you learn how to survive in my world. And if I refuse, he smirked. Not amused. Amused would have been safer. You won't. Later that night, he opened the door to his bedroom. Not mine. Get in, he said. I hesitated. He waited, hands in his pockets, like a man asking for the weather, not obedience. But that was the game, wasn't it? I stepped in. The room was dark wood, deeper shadows. Everything felt expensive and wrong. I won't touch you tonight, he said, moving past me. Not until you beg me to. That won't happen, I told myself. Not tonight, not ever. He turned his back, unbuttoning his shirt, slow, methodical, unforgiving. Scars marked his skin, long, jagged, stories written in blood. I looked away before. He could see my stare. He got into bed on one side. I stood there. Sleep, he said, voice low. Unless you'd rather be locked with the dogs. I climbed in, fully clothed, heartbeat shaking the mattress. He didn't touch me, didn't speak, but I couldn't sleep, not with him inches away. And then, just before I slipped into a restless, broken half-sleep, he whispered, "You look like her." I froze. Who? I breathed. Silence. Dead silence. Who was she? And why did his voice sound like regret or revenge? In his silence, I heard a name. Not mine, but the ghost I was meant to replace. The next morning, the sunlight didn't feel like salvation. It felt like interrogation. I woke alone. His side of the bed was cold, untouched, like he'd never slept, or maybe never could. There was a note on the pillow where black, "We're going somewhere." No name, no signature, just control. The closet was filled with clothes I'd never bought, sizes that fit too perfectly, like someone had already studied me. I chose the least revealing dress, black silk and long sleeves, but the neckline still dipped too low. Not a dress, a uniform. His men were waiting downstairs. One opened the car door like I was royalty. Another watched me like I was bait. He was already inside. Black suit, sunglasses, no smile, no greeting. I slid in beside him without a word. We drove in silence, through narrow streets that reeked of old money and fresh blood. I could feel him watching me. Not with desire, not with hatred, with calculation, like I was a puzzle piece he hadn't decided to use yet. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "You'll see what loyalty costs." The car stopped in front of a cathedral, empty, quiet, but not peaceful. Inside, candles flickered. Dust hung like secrets in the air. He walked slowly down the aisle. I followed, then he stopped. One hand rested on the edge of the altar. "She stood here," he said, "the woman you remind me of." My skin went cold. "She loved me," he added, "and she lied." I swallowed. What happened to her? He turned to me slowly. "I killed her." I froze. His voice was calm. His eyes were not. "She betrayed the family. She wore my name, then sold my blood. And now I wear your name too. But you married me," I whispered. "Yes." His voice was like steel wrapped in silk. "Because your father owed a debt, and because I wanted to see if lies run in the family." The air disappeared from my lungs. "Are you testing me?" I asked. He smiled finally. "Double quotes, no bride," he said. "I'm watching you." As we stepped back into the daylight, he touched my chin lightly. "You have until midnight to prove something to me," he said. "What? That I didn't make the same mistake twice?" He kissed my cheek, soft, lethal, and walked away. Midnight was a threat. But the fear bloomed hours before. in the sound of his footsteps behind a locked door. I didn't speak during the drive back. Neither did he. The air between us was thick with something sharp. Not silence, suspicion. He didn't look at me once, but his fingers tapped on the armrest like a countdown had begun. Midnight. What happened at midnight? When we returned to the estate, he didn't follow me inside. I heard his voice behind me. You're free to move around the house, just not through the red door. The red door. Second floor. End of the hall. I'd noticed it yesterday, the only door that was locked. That night, dinner was served in silence. He didn't join me. A soldier stood in his place, armed, stone-faced. And pretending not to stare, am I his prisoner or his guest? Even I couldn't answer that anymore. Hours passed. I paced the room. I told myself I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't go near it. The red door, but by 11. The house was too quiet, too dark, and curiosity had never killed a bride. Just cats. The hallway stretched like a warning. I walked toward the red door. Each step louder than the last. I reached for the knob. Cold steel locked, but something whispered behind it. Not sound, memory. I pressed my ear against the wood, and then a voice, faint, male, panicked. She doesn't know. He won't tell her. Not yet. I backed away, heart racing. Who was behind that door? I turned. He was standing there, leaning against the wall, watching me, not angry, worse, disappointed. I told you not to come here, he said. My mouth went dry. Who's in there? His gaze dropped to my hand, still trembling. A man who made a promise, he said, and broke it. Am I next? I whispered. No, he said, stepping closer. Not yet. He reached into his jacket. I flinched, but it wasn't a gun. It was a key. He pressed it into my palm, cold and sharp. You want the truth? He asked. Open the door at midnight. Then he left. No threat, no kiss, just the weight of a key that could shatter everything. The clocks. Minute hand hovered at 11. My breath echoing in the hallway sounded ancient, like fear, dressed as longing. I held the key tight, knuckles pale. With a trembling hand, I inserted it into the lock. Click. Inside was darkness, a room pressed with secrets. Dust motes floated like ghosts, heart hammering. I stepped in. Dim moonlight revealed a small desk and a photograph. A woman's smile, haunting, sad. She looked just like me. I gasped. Who was she? What did she mean to him? A drawer creaked open beside me. Inside, letters, scattered edges frayed. I picked one up. His handwriting precise, cold. I never meant to lose you. But losing her is what cost me everything. Tears blurred the words. Losing her. Her who? My blood ran cold. I heard the door click softly behind me. He stepped in. Not angry, but raw, like a wound finally seen. You found her, he said simply. I swallowed. Who is she? He exhaled as if carrying years of regret. She was almost toying with me. I killed myths, not hearts, and I thought she'd been just another myth. My vision swayed. You killed her. He nodded. His eyes glistened. Yes. Silence settled then. You're like her, I whispered. He frowned. Different, he corrected. Stronger. I closed my fist around the letter. The key felt heavier now. He took a step toward me. I didn't make this promise to just replace her, he said. I needed to see if someone could look like her, but breathe free of her memory. A knock, soft yet purposeful, broke us apart. His guard appeared in the doorway, watching. He turned back to me, voice low. The door stays open from now on. Then he left. I sat in the moonlight, torn between relief and horror. I unlocked not just a door, but a truth he thought he'd buried now. Fear and power sat side by side in my chest, and at midnight, something changed forever. His eyes held secrets deeper than the night, and I was drowning in the dark. The room was thick with silence, heavy, suffocating. He stood by the window, his silhouette sharp against the city lights, unmoving. I wanted to speak, to break the distance, but the words tangled in my throat. "What do you want from me?" I whispered, my voice barely more than a breath. He turned slowly, his gaze cold but unreadable. No softness, no answers. Just the weight of a man who carried too many burdens and too many lies. His footsteps echoed like a warning I couldn't unhear as he approached, each step closer, pulling me into a web I didn't know how to escape. "Trust," he said finally. The word was simple, but carried the force of a command. I swallowed hard. Trust him after everything. But how could I deny the pull? The dangerous magnetism of a man who was both my captor and my only protector. His hand brushed against mine, a touch so light it could have been a ghost, yet it set fire to every nerve. "That night," he murmured, "I gave you a choice. Now it's time to choose again." I looked away, heart pounding. The choice wasn't just his love or his crime anymore. It was survival mine, and the night was just beginning. The city stretched beneath me like a map of broken promises, a labyrinth of light and darkness. I wasn't sure I could ever escape. I sat by the window, the cold glass pressing against my cheek, trying to calm the storm inside. But my thoughts were a wildfire, fueled by the memory of his eyes, those cold, unreadable depths that had been burning into mine for hours. When he left the room earlier, his footsteps echoed like a warning I couldn't unhear. Silence filled the space between us, thick and heavy, making the air almost suffocating. I wanted to call after him, demand some kind of answer, but my voice betrayed me, caught somewhere between fear and something darker, something like longing. I wasn't just afraid of him anymore. I was afraid of what I was becoming. The door creaked open again, and he appeared, tall and still, a shadow carved out of darkness and smoke. His presence was overwhelming, magnetic, the kind that pulled you in even when every rational part of you screamed to run. "You think you can play me," he said, voice low, a dangerous edge sharpening every word. "But I'm the one who owns the game." His words slithered through the room like poison, but I refused to show how much they cut. My heart pounded, but I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze with what little defiance I had left. "I'm not playing," I said, my voice quieter than I wanted, but steady. "I'm surviving," he smirked, a cruel, slow curve of lips that promised nothing good. "Survival isn't enough," he said, "not with me." His hand reached toward me, fingers curling as if to claim, but he stopped just short of touching my skin. The tension was unbearable. His restraint was both a warning and an invitation. I could feel the heat of his breath, the power in his stillness. "You don't know what I'm capable of," he whispered, "but soon you will." The weight of his words crushed the fragile hope I'd been clutching. I wanted to scream, to fight, to run, but the cage wasn't just physical anymore. It was the way he looked at me, like I was something he both desired and despised. A threat to himself. Am I his prisoner or his weapon? I swallowed hard, trying to steady the tremble in my hands. "And what if I don't want to learn?" His eyes darkened. "Then you'll be the one who pays the price." The silence stretched between us, thick with things unsaid. I wanted to reach out, to break the distance, but the fear was a wall I couldn't scale. Instead, I sat there, caught in the dangerous pull of a man who could destroy me or save me. And once again, the choice was his to give, in the silence between his words. I heard the echo of a life I was losing. The next morning came like a blade sharp, unforgiving. The room was cold, stripped of any warmth save for the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air, a cruel reminder that he was always near, even when he wasn't. I moved quietly, careful not to wake the household. Each step was heavy with the weight of unspoken fears, every breath a fragile thread holding me together. I found myself drawn to the mirror. The reflection staring back was someone I barely recognized, woman caught between the past she'd lost and the future she dreaded. Who am I now? I wondered, tracing the pale lines beneath my eyes. The girl I had been seemed so distant, like a memory from someone else's life. Then he appeared behind me, his shadow stretching long across the wall. I could feel his gaze even before he spoke. You. Think about running, he said softly, almost cruelly. But you won't, not yet. His fingers brushed the nape of my neck, light as a whisper, but charged with a force I couldn't resist. I flinched, not because it hurt, but because it meant surrendering even a little. I don't want this, I confessed, voice breaking. I don't want you, he laughed, dark and low. You think you have a choice. The words cut deeper than any threat. I was trapped between his iron will and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a way out. But each day, that hope felt like slipping sand, still beneath the fear. A spark ignited a stubborn flicker of defiance, refusing to be snuffed out. I'm not yours to own, I whispered. Not yet. His eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in their depths: respect, surprise. Or was it just the same cold calculation, weighing the challenge I posed? You'll learn, he said simply, or you'll break. The words hung in the air like a sentence, and in that moment, I realized this was only the beginning of a war neither of us could afford to lose. His silence was a cage. His words, the lock. Days blurred into nights, each one heavier than the last. The mansion felt like a prison dressed as a palace, beautiful, but cold, suffocating in its grandeur. I moved through its halls like a ghost, always watched, always measured. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his voice was like ice sliding over my skin, sharp, precise, impossible to ignore. You're changing, he said one evening as we sat across from each other in the dim light of his study, not just because of me, because of what you're beginning to understand. I looked down, unsure if I should meet his gaze. The truth was terrifying, yes. I was changing, but was it becoming? Someone stronger or someone lost? One lost. I don't want to be this person, I murmured. He leaned forward, eyes dark and unreadable. You don't get to choose what you become. You get to choose how you survive. His words were a challenge and a warning. Survival meant more than just breathing. It meant playing the dangerous game he ruled. That night, I lay awake, thinking about the choices I'd been forced to make, the kisses that burned like betrayal, the promises whispered in shadows, and the growing fire inside. A fire he either hadn't noticed or was carefully watching. I will not be his prisoner forever, I vowed silently. Not if I can help it. But the price of freedom was steep, and every step toward it risked everything I held dear. Every calm face hides a storm. I'm only beginning to understand. The night wrapped around us like a velvet trap, heavy, silent, and thick with unspoken threats. His eyes, those cold orbs I once feared, now held something else, something fragile, dangerous, a flicker of doubt, or a challenge. He leaned against the doorframe, his silhouette sharp against the dim light. "You think you're clever," he said, voice low but edged with steel. "You think you can play my game without getting cut?" I swallowed the rising fear. "Maybe I'm done playing your game," I whispered, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "Maybe it's time I draw my own lines." He straightened, stepping closer, the scent of his cologne wrapping around me like smoke and fire. "This world," he murmured, "is darker than you imagine. Every move you make pulls you deeper into shadows you can't escape." I met his gaze, refusing to look away. "Then show me the darkness. Teach me what I need to survive." His jaw clenched, and for a moment, silence stretched between us like a thin wire ready to snap. Then a bitter laugh escaped his lips. "Truth," he said, "is a luxury you don't get to afford. Not here, not now." My heart pounded. I could feel the weight of his world crashing down around me. The lies, the power, the violence, all tangled in a deadly web. But beneath it all, I sensed a crack, his mask slipping just enough to let me see the man beneath. "Tomorrow," he said, voice dropping to a whisper, "you'll see everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, and you'll have to decide which side you're on." I nodded, breath hitching. Tonight, I was his prisoner, but tomorrow I would fight. His silence was the loudest scream I had ever heard. The room was heavy with shadows, the faint scent of expensive cologne mingling with the bitter sting of regret. I sat on the edge of the velvet chaise fingers, trembling as the cold glass of whiskey burned a trail down my throat. Across from me, he stood like a statue carved from ice, still, unyielding, yet impossible to look away from. "Why did you come back?" I asked, voice barely a whisper. The words felt like a betrayal, but the truth clawed inside me, desperate to escape. He didn't answer right away. Instead, his eyes, dark and unreadable, studied me as if weighing my worth, my soul. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, like the moments before a storm breaks. "I never left," he finally said, voice low, almost a growl. "I never stopped watching." A shiver ran down my spine, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was something darker, something electric and forbidden. I wanted to hate him, to curse the nights filled with stolen glances and dangerous promises. But the truth was buried deeper than my pride. It was a longing I couldn't shake, a dangerous pull towards the man who held my fate, and my heart in his ruthless hands. My mind raced back to the night when everything changed, when his touch was both a threat and a promise. When I first tasted the danger wrapped in silk, I thought I was fragile. I thought I was broken, but he showed me the cracks could be weapons. His footsteps echoed like a warning I couldn't unhear. As he crossed the room, the sharp lines of his jaw catching the faint light. He stopped inches from me, his breath a whisper against my skin. "You belong to this world now," he said, voice thick with something I couldn't name. And to me, the words sent a chill down my spine. But beneath the fear, a flicker of defiance sparked inside me. I wasn't the girl who trembled in silence anymore. Not entirely. "I'm not yours," I breathed, eyes burning with a new fire. "Not yet." He smiled, then slow, dangerous, like a predator savoring the hunt. "That night, you kissed me like punishment," he said softly, "but I never saw the knife." I flinched, memories flooding back like shards of glass sharp. Painful, unforgettable. That kiss had been a reckoning, a moment suspended between pain and desire. A silent battle where we both lost control. "Why do you torture me?" I asked, voice cracking. "Why pull me closer only to push me away?" His gaze softened for the briefest moment, almost human. "Because I'm afraid," he admitted, surprising us both. afraid that if I let you in, I'll lose everything. The confession hung between us like fragile glass, ready to shatter. For a heartbeat, the walls around him cracked, revealing the man behind the Mafia boss, the man who loved me in his own broken way. I reached out then, trembling fingers brushing his cheek. Maybe losing everything is the only way to find yourself. He caught my hand, holding it like a lifeline, like a promise that maybe, just maybe, we could rewrite the story written in blood and silence. Outside, the city roared, oblivious to the quiet revolution happening in a shadowed room where love and danger danced a deadly tango. And in that moment, I realized I was no longer the girl waiting to be saved. I was the woman who would fight to own her story, no matter the cost. Because sometimes the greatest love is born in the darkest nights. The room felt colder tonight, though the heat of his presence should have been enough to warm every inch of it. But no. Instead, the shadows grew longer, swallowing what little light dared to flicker. I watched him across the table, his eyes unreadable, dark pools of dangerous calm. He was calm because he was in control, and that control squeezed tighter around me with every breath. "You think this is a game," he said, voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding like a wild drum inside my chest. "No," I told myself, "this is survival. I never asked for any of this," I whispered. But the words sounded hollow, even to me. He leaned forward, fingers steepled, the faintest smirk playing at his lips. "You asked the moment you stepped into my world, his world, a place where love and betrayal were two sides of the same coin, where every touch could either save or destroy me." I wanted to look away, but I didn't. I couldn't. His gaze held me captive, dragging me deeper into the labyrinth I was only beginning to understand. "Do you even know what you're fighting for?" His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Because I'm not the enemy." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that beneath the ruthless exterior was someone real. But every promise felt like a trap, every softness a weapon. Disguised. The door creaked open, and I barely blinked as his lieutenant stepped inside. "They're ready," he said. "The meeting's set. The family's waiting." The weight of the night crashed down on me. The family, that word was a loaded gun. Danger, politics, power, all wrapped into one deadly package. And I was in the middle of it. He rose, towering and cold, his eyes never leaving mine. "You'll stay here, safe." The order wasn't a request. I clenched my fists. Safe. I don't know what that means anymore. He hesitated just for a moment before the mask slipped back into place. "You will, because you have no other choice." The silence that followed was thicker than any wall, pressing down on me until I felt like I might suffocate. I wanted to scream, to run, to break free, but I stayed. Because beneath the fear, beneath the pain, a stubborn flame was flickering. Inside me, a promise that I wasn't done yet. And as he turned toward the door, I whispered, "This isn't over." His glance back was the closest thing to a smile I'd seen in weeks. "It's only just begun." Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, time slipping away before everything shattered. I stayed behind, the cold walls of the mansion closing in like a trap. His words echoed in my mind. "You'll stay here, safe, safe," he said. But safety was a lie I'd long stopped believing. I paced the room, trying to drown out the heavy silence. My fingers trembled as I touched the edge of the windowsill. The night sky dark and endless beyond the glass. Somewhere out there, the family gathered, plotting, deciding my fate, his fate and mine. I was a pawn, a secret buried beneath layers of lies and violence. The moonlight caught on my tear-streaked face, and I fought the urge to break. I had to be stronger. For him, for me. A soft knock pulled me from my thoughts. "Come in," I said. Voice rough. The door creaked open, and his eyes met mine, cold, unreadable, but somehow softer. He stepped inside, closing the door with deliberate care. "Why didn't you come with them?" I asked, though the answer was clear. He belonged to this world, to its ruthless rules. He sighed, a sound that wasn't quite human. "Because this is where you need to be tonight." I studied him, this man who was both my protector and my prison. And what if I don't want to be safe? He moved closer, the space between us charged and suffocating. "Then you're exactly where you're supposed to be." His hand brushed a stray lock of hair from my face, gentle but commanding. The heat of his touch ignited a fire deep within me, fear, desire, confusion, all tangled together. "I'm tired of being scared," I confessed, voice barely above a whisper. His eyes darkened. "Then stop being afraid." The room fell into silence again, heavier this time, like the calm before a storm. Outside, footsteps echoed faintly. The family's whispers, their hidden threats, their dangerous promises. And inside, between us, a fragile thread stretched taut, ready to snap. I wanted to believe we could break free, but deep down, I knew some chains ran deeper than blood. He pressed his forehead to mine, and I closed my eyes, savoring the moment before the inevitable came crashing down, because the night was far from over. The silence between us was heavier than any gunshot, filled with secrets I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The hours dragged on, but time lost meaning when every second was a battle within me. His presence filled the room, cold, steady, impossible to ignore. I wasn't just a prisoner here. I was a witness to something darker than I'd ever imagined. He sat across from me, eyes sharp like knives, scanning my face as if searching for cracks. I met his gaze, trying to hold my ground even as my heart hammered against my ribs. "Why did you really keep me here?" I asked, voice trembling but defiant. He leaned forward, fingers steepled. "Because out there, they want to use you against me. You're more valuable than you realize." I swallowed hard. The Mafia wasn't just about power or money. It was about control over people, over fear, over loyalty. And I was caught in the middle. "I don't want to be valuable," I whispered. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. No one ever wants to be valuable until they understand what that means. I wanted to run from his words, but they clung to me like smoke. Could I survive in this world? Could I survive him? Suddenly, the room darkened as someone entered, a shadow moving with purpose. His voice, low and dangerous, broke the silence. "We have a problem." I recognized the tension in his tone. The family was restless. Betrayals, whispers, threats, they all bubbled beneath the surface, ready to explode. He stood, stepping toward the door, but pausing to glance back at me. "Stay here, no matter what." I nodded, even though a storm was brewing inside me, and I wasn't sure how long I could stay silent. As the door closed behind him, I sank into the chair, the weight of my new reality crushing me. This wasn't just a fight for power, it was a fight for survival land. I was no longer just a bystander. If I was going to live through this, I needed to find my own strength. Before it was too late, every promise felt like a razor edge cutting me deeper with every whispered word. The night had settled like a shroud over the city, but inside the mansion, nothing was still. Footsteps echoed through the halls, voices hushed but urgent. I sat by the window, watching the flicker of distant streetlights, feeling more alone than ever. He returned hours later, the weight of decisions pressing on him like a storm cloud. His eyes caught mine, but the hardness had softened just a fraction. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something, maybe regret, or something darker, buried beneath layers of control. "We can't trust anyone," he said quietly, voice low, as if admitting a secret. "Not even those closest to us." I shivered, not from cold but from the raw truth in his words. The Mafia was a family forged in blood, but those bonds were fragile, ready to snap under the strain of ambition and fear. "What do you want from me?" I asked, voice barely audible, his gaze sharpened. "I want you to survive. But surviving means choosing between them, between me and between who you are now and who you could become." I hated how those words echoed inside me. Become? What was I supposed to become in this merciless world? A pawn, a weapon, or something else entirely? He stepped closer, the scent of his cologne filling the space between sharp and intoxicating. "You're stronger than you think." I wanted to believe him, but the shadows in my heart whispered otherwise. Suddenly, a soft knock at the door shattered the moment. His expression tightened. "It's time. Time for what? Another game. Another betrayal." I stood, heart pounding, knowing the choice I'd have to make was coming faster than I expected. This was no longer just his war. It was mine. The night I finally chose between love and survival, between silence and truth, I lost everything and found myself. The room was thick with tension, the kind that twists your insides and refuses to let go. He stood across from me, his eyes cold yet searching, as if daring me to break the silence. "This is it," he said. "The moment you decide if you're mine or if you're gone forever." I swallowed the fear, feeling the weight of every choice crushing down. I wasn't the frightened girl who had walked into this life months ago. Something inside me had awakened a fierce fire born of betrayal, pain, and desperate hope. "No," I whispered, "I'm not yours. Not like this." His face darkened, a flash of anger and something unreadable flickering in his gaze. "You don't understand what you're saying." "I understand more than you think," I said, stepping forward, voice steady. "I understand that love wrapped in chains is still a prison. I understand that I have to choose my own path, even if it means walking away from you, ... and everything I thought I wanted." For a heartbeat, the man who had seemed invincible cracked. Then, silence. He nodded once, sharply, as if acknowledging a defeat I never wanted to claim. "I hoped you'd choose differently," he said quietly, "but I won't be the one to hold you back." I turned to leave, feeling the air shift like a breaking storm outside. The dawn was bleeding in soft, new, and full of possibility. I didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time, I knew it was mine to face, and that was freedom, freedom,